The move felt like a leap into a story yet to be written. I remember the crisp morning air as we drove past the familiar urban chaos and into the gentle rhythm of Brentwood, a town where every street seemed thoughtfully arranged and every home carried the promise of a peaceful life. The city's relentless pace was replaced by a quiet hum, a serene backdrop against which the future began to unfold. My son Tyler sat by the window, his eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and quiet apprehension, absorbing every detail of our new surroundings. Brentwood's charm wasn't found in grand monuments or bustling markets, but in the subtle details: the freshly painted shutters of each house, the orderly sidewalks where neighbors exchanged warm smiles, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the well-tended parks. Every corner of this town whispered of care and community, a stark contrast to the hurried life we'd left behind. I couldn't help but feel that this environment might heal old wounds and open doors to opportunities we had never dared to imagine. Our new home was a modest, welcoming dwelling nestled among rows of identical, lovingly cared-for houses. As we stepped inside, the space filled with natural light and a quiet promise of stability. Each room seemed to invite us to leave behind the past and embrace the present. I spent the first few hours unpacking memories alongside boxes, old photographs, cherished books, and the few personal treasures that had traveled with us on this journey. The gentle rhythm of unpacking became a meditation in itself, each item a quiet reminder that while life was constantly changing, the essence of who we were remained constant. Tyler's curiosity led him to explore every nook of the neighborhood. He ventured out onto the manicured lawns and meandering sidewalks with cautious excitement. His tentative greetings soon turned into genuine smiles as he encountered friendly faces at the local corner store and a nearby park, where children played with unburdened joy. It was as if Brentwood was silently assuring him that here, every newcomer was welcomed with open arms. I watched him make these small connections with a mix of relief and wonder. His laughter echoed the town's gentle spirit, and in those moments I found a spark of hope for the days ahead. While the day slipped by in a blend of quiet discovery and the slow unfolding of simple pleasures, I too began to sense the subtle shift in my heart. The decision to start anew had been fraught with uncertainty, but the beauty of Brentwood was in its capacity to nurture growth without demanding grand gestures. Here, every small interaction carried meaning: a neighbor's nod on the street, a kind word from a local shopkeeper, and the shared smile of strangers who all knew what it meant to begin again. In that soft, persistent way, the town started to mend the gaps left by past mistakes and the lingering heaviness of memories I had long tried to forget. As the evening approached, casting long shadows on the neatly trimmed hedges, I stood at the window of our living room and felt a quiet determination settle in my soul. This was not just a relocation, it was an opportunity to rebuild, to rediscover the parts of myself that had lain dormant for too long. In Brentwood, beneath the gentle watch of familiar stars and the embrace of a community that valued simplicity and care, the promise of a new life shimmered on the horizon, a promise I was now ready to meet head-on. As the days in Brentwood slipped gracefully into one another, the unfamiliar gradually became a second home. Tyler's transformation from cautious newcomer to an active participant in the neighborhood's daily life was both immediate and heartening. On his very first afternoon, while I prepared a simple snack in our sunlit kitchen, Tyler dashed out with an enthusiastic wave to a group of children gathered near the park's entrance. Within moments, he found himself engrossed in animated conversation with a boy named Ethan, whose friendly grin and confident manner hinted at a natural leadership among his peers. Tyler's circle expanded quickly. He was soon joined by Lucas, whose quiet curiosity balanced Ethan's exuberance, Marcus, who carried an air of thoughtful mischief, Riley, whose gentle laughter seemed to bridge gaps between strangers, and Nathan, a boy whose keen observations often turned everyday moments into little adventures. Each of these new acquaintances brought a distinct spark to our lives, a fusion of personalities that transformed solitary afternoons into shared explorations and lively dialogues. They gathered not only for games or school assignments, but also for spontaneous discussions, their voices blending into a warm chorus of youthful optimism. I found myself swept into this new world of energy and camaraderie. What began as a tentative effort to extend a greeting evolved into heartfelt conversations during community gatherings and impromptu get-togethers at our modest home. Evenings were often spent around the dinner table, where laughter and stories flowed as freely as the tea we sipped. In these moments, I recognized the beauty of forging genuine connections, each interaction a small reminder that rebuilding one's life was not about erasing the past, but about embracing new, vibrant chapters alongside those who cared. Outside, Brentwood revealed its own rhythm through the everyday lives of its residents. Neighbors shared tips on gardening, local events, and even book recommendations, weaving a tapestry of trust and mutual respect that extended well beyond mere pleasantries. This environment of openness and support made it easier to let down the guard I had built around my heart. I began to rediscover a sense of belonging, encouraged by the welcoming smiles and the easy camaraderie that defined the town's character. Meanwhile, Tyler's bond with his new friends deepened over shared school projects and playful challenges that tested their creativity and resilience. In the park, beneath the broad canopy of ancient trees, they built forts and crafted imaginative worlds, a realm where differences melted away and every day presented the promise of fresh beginnings. I watched from a distance, quietly marveling at how these young souls, united by the simple joy of connection, transformed the uncertainties of change into a mosaic of collective hope. Each passing day in Brentwood reaffirmed that true adaptation was less about the speed of change and more about the willingness to embrace it wholeheartedly. The town had already begun to nurture us, its gentle influence seeping into our routines, our conversations, and our dreams. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with soft hues of orange and purple, I realized that in this seemingly ordinary town, extraordinary moments were unfolding, a quiet prelude to the deeper revelations that lay ahead. In the gentle embrace of Brentwood's evenings, our home began to pulse with the rhythm of freshly born traditions. As twilight softly cloaked the neighborhood, Tyler and I discovered the simple pleasure of gathering in our warm kitchen, where the clatter of utensils and the aroma of simmering sauces transformed our modest space into a haven of creative expression. Our evenings were no longer solitary moments of quiet reflection, but vibrant sessions filled with laughter, playful banter, and the steady hum of shared dreams. Each night, after the day's uncertainties melted away, we would roll up our sleeves and embark on a culinary adventure together. The process of preparing dinner became more than just a routine. It evolved into a delightful ritual where every ingredient told a story. Fresh herbs from a little garden we tended, locally sourced vegetables from the market, and the simple act of kneading dough by hand all contributed to an atmosphere of mutual engagement. As I chopped, stirred, and plated, Tyler and his friends would sometimes wander in, drawn by the magnetism of a home filled with the promise of good food and better company. In these moments, our conversations stretched from light-hearted jokes to earnest plans for the future, each word weaving a tapestry of connection that gently blurred the lines between family and newfound community. Parallel to our culinary experiments, I rediscovered my long-forgotten love for art through informal evening workshops. The living room transformed into a makeshift studio, where canvases and brushes took center stage. Tyler, his friends, and I found solace in splashes of color and the unspoken language of creativity. We shared ideas and techniques, some passed down from generations, others discovered through our mutual curiosity. In the midst of these creative sessions, we experimented with different styles and mediums, often surprising ourselves with the hidden talents that emerged. The act of creating, whether it was a vividly abstract painting or a delicately sketched portrait, served as a silent reaffirmation that our lives, despite the challenges we'd faced, could be continuously reinvented. These evenings were punctuated by moments of gentle reflection and bursts of laughter. We learned that tradition was not about adhering to strict rules, but about celebrating the beauty of everyday rituals that brought us closer. Over time, these gatherings cultivated an unspoken understanding that every shared experience, be it the joy of a perfectly seasoned meal or the pride in a newly finished artwork, was a step toward healing old scars and nurturing a sense of belonging. Here, in Brentwood, creativity was the common language that bridged generational gaps, built trust, and laid the groundwork for a future defined by renewed hope and continuous growth. On a cool autumn evening, as our home embraced its familiar routine, I found myself engaged in a heartfelt conversation with Marcus, an adult neighbor and a longtime friend of our family, whose thoughtful insights had, over the years, enriched our gatherings. Our conversation meandered from light observations about Brentwood to deeper reflections on personal growth and change. It was during these moments that I began to see a subtle yet undeniable shift. Marcus's mature, compassionate gaze held a warmth that resonated with questions I had long kept hidden. His measured voice spoke earnestly about navigating life's unexpected twists, and I realized that his words were reaching a part of me that had been dormant for too long. As our discussion deepened, we gravitated toward a quieter corner of the room where the everyday world seemed to fall away. In the silence that followed, words gave way to long, thoughtful glances, a silent conversation that spoke more profoundly than any overt declaration. In that moment, I recognized a stirring within my heart, a pull towards something that I had not anticipated but could no longer ignore. With that quiet understanding between us, Marcus, ever respectful and sincere, leaned in. Our lips met in a brief, tender kiss, an act that, while gentle and unadorned, marked a significant moment of personal revelation. That kiss was not an act of defiance, but a pause in time, a subtle punctuation in our ongoing narrative that acknowledged the evolving nature of our friendship and the complexities of adult emotions. Almost immediately, the room seemed to contract around us. The once familiar surroundings now served as a silent witness to an act that, in an instant, reshaped the boundaries of our shared existence. I was aware of the inner turmoil that churned within me, a collision of longing and guilt, a perplexing intermingling that I knew would have lasting repercussions. The kiss, brief as it was, marked a decisive moment in my life, one that would cast long shadows over the relationships I had so carefully nurtured. In the days that followed, the air in our home felt altered, carrying a weight that neither of us could easily dismiss. Conversations that once flowed with carefree candor now hesitated at the edge of unsaid confessions. I found myself questioning how such a small act could unravel threads of trust and alter the fabric of our daily life so irrevocably. Even as I grappled with the silent aftermath, the memory of that moment lingered, an emblem of a path taken that I would have to traverse with both caution and resolve. In the quiet aftermath of that brief, life-altering moment, the air in our home grew unexpectedly heavy. It began with subtle shifts. Tyler's once enthusiastic greetings now replaced by pensive silence, his eyes distant and clouded by thoughts I dared not speak of. At first, I tried to dismiss his withdrawn demeanor as the natural process of adjusting to a new environment. Yet, as the days passed, the silence between us deepened, punctuated by brief, awkward exchanges that spoke louder than words. One afternoon, as the golden light of fall filtered through our living room window, I found Tyler sitting alone on the back steps of our house. His gaze was fixed on nothing in particular, yet every fiber of his posture conveyed a storm of emotions. I approached quietly, my heart heavy with both anticipation and dread, and sat beside him. It was then that he finally spoke in a soft, tremulous tone, his words laced with hurt and confusion. Without fully understanding, he recounted snippets of conversation overheard among his friends and the subtle changes he noticed in our interactions. His voice wavered between longing for the past and a dawning realization that something within our family had irrevocably changed. Listening to him, I felt the weight of the secret that had been hidden in our shared glances and unspoken exchanges. The truth, once confined to a single, impulsive moment, had now spilled into the realm of consequences. Tyler's pain was palpable, and his disappointment struck me with the force of an unexpected winter chill. In that moment, I recognized that my fleeting lapse in judgment had not only breached a personal boundary, but had also fractured the trust that lay at the heart of our relationship. The betrayal, though not shouted in anger or adorned with harsh words, resonated deeply in the quiet sorrow of a young soul grappling with a new understanding of loyalty. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the soft hum of night settled around us, I found myself alone with a torrent of remorse and introspection. In the silence of my own thoughts, I retraced the steps that had led to that fateful kiss, questioning every choice and pondering the irreversible impact on the bond I cherished most. The revelation of Tyler's disillusionment was a stark reminder that even the smallest deviations from our core values could ripple through our lives, leaving scars where there once was only hope. The realization that I had become the unwitting architect of his dismay stirred an inner crisis, a reckoning with my past actions and a desperate search for a way to mend what had been broken. I resolved, then and there, to confront the consequences of that day with honesty and care, knowing that the journey back to trust would be neither swift nor easy. In the dimming light, with the night stretching long and full of memories yet to be reconciled, I silently vowed to begin the arduous task of restoring our bond, one gentle, sincere step at a time. In the silent hours of a late autumn night, when the world outside had surrendered to darkness and the only light came from the soft glow of a solitary lamp in my study, I found myself confronting the vast emptiness left by my actions. Every echo in the quiet room resonated with memories of that fateful day, a day when a single, impulsive moment had upended the delicate balance of our home. As I sat alone, the weight of regret pressed heavily upon me, and my mind became a battleground of conflicting emotions. I was torn between the undeniable urge to retreat into the safety of self-reproach and the desperate need to understand how I had strayed so far from the path I once held dear. I began retracing the steps of my decisions with a critical eye, scrutinizing each instance of vulnerability that led to that brief, forbidden encounter. The familiar routines that once brought comfort now appeared as silent witnesses to my lapse. The laughter that had filled our shared evenings, the creative energy of our makeshift art studio, and even the simple pleasure of preparing meals together. All these moments were now tainted by the bitter aftertaste of betrayal. My inner voice, once a gentle guide, now thundered with questions. How had I allowed my guard to falter? What hidden fractures in my heart had I neglected to mend until it was too late? In these moments of seclusion, the depth of my introspection was both brutal and unyielding. I felt as though I were standing on the precipice of an internal chasm, with every regretful thought threatening to plunge me into despair. Memories of Tyler's downcast eyes and the quiet resignation in his tone haunted me relentlessly. His silent suffering mirrored the damage wrought by my own missteps, and I realized that the true betrayal lay not in the act itself, but in the unintentional shattering of a trust that had once been unbreakable. The consequences of my actions were not measured in fleeting minutes or whispered confessions, but in the lasting impact on a young soul that had believed in the unwavering love of a parent. I struggled to reconcile the person I had been with the person I had become. The introspection was painful, forcing me to confront truths I had long avoided. That vulnerability, when not tempered by self-awareness, could lead to irreversible consequences, that the path to healing was paved with relentless accountability and the courage to face the repercussions of one's own choices. My heart ached with the realization that every moment of indulgence in my own desires had contributed to a slow, creeping isolation between Tyler and me, a gulf that now seemed insurmountable. Yet, amidst the overwhelming remorse, there flickered a faint but persistent desire to restore what had been broken. In the solitude of that night, as I penned my thoughts in a journal with trembling hands, I vowed to embark on the arduous journey of healing. I resolved to seek understanding, not just from Tyler, but from myself, to rebuild the shattered fragments of our relationship, one honest conversation at a time. The process would be long and fraught with difficult revelations, but in the quiet aftermath of my internal crisis, I recognized that redemption lay not in denial or evasion, but in the brave act of facing the consequences and striving for genuine change. In the weeks following that heavy night of reflection, a subtle shift began to emerge from the lingering silence. The once opaque distance between Tyler and me, carved out by unspoken pain, started to show the first fragile signs of healing. Each day became a quiet negotiation, a series of small, sincere gestures aimed at rebuilding the shattered trust. I made an effort to reach out to him, not with grand declarations, but with simple acts. Preparing his favorite breakfast on cool mornings, leaving handwritten notes of encouragement, and gently inviting him to join in our shared activities without forcing conversation. One afternoon, as rain softly pattered against the windows, I found Tyler in the living room, curled up with a book he had long cherished. I sat quietly on the other side of the room, careful to respect the space he seemed to need, yet remaining present. The silence was different now, less burdened by unspoken reproach, and more open to the possibility of gentle dialogue. Slowly, he looked up and asked if I might join him in discussing the book's themes. His tentative request, laced with a mixture of caution and hope, marked the beginning of a conversation that bridged the gap between us. We spoke about the characters' struggles and triumphs, and in the sharing of thoughts, our voices began to weave a new narrative. A narrative of understanding, where mistakes were acknowledged without being exploited, and where each word was a tentative step toward mutual forgiveness. Tyler's friends, ever perceptive of the subtle dynamics in our household, also played their quiet roles. Their spontaneous visits and lighthearted banter, once a mere backdrop to our evenings, gradually reminded us that our family was part of a larger tapestry. In one memorable instance, during a community event in the local park, a shared game and an unexpected burst of laughter among all of us sparked a moment of collective healing. It was in that instance, a fleeting, sincere burst of camaraderie, that I recognized the value of restoring harmony not just between Tyler and me, but within the entire circle that had come to define our new life in Brentwood. In the ensuing days, I made it a point to initiate more moments of joint activity, from quiet walks along tree-lined streets to art sessions in our modest studio. These weren't solutions that could erase the past, but they were seeds of a future where forgiveness and understanding could grow. The process was painstakingly slow, with moments of relapse and days when silence returned. Yet every small conversation, every shared smile or gentle laugh became a building block for a renewed relationship, a testament to the resilience of the human heart in the face of regret. As twilight fell over Brentwood one evening, I sat beside Tyler on the back porch. The golden light seemed to soften the edges of our shared memories, creating an atmosphere where both hurt and hope could coexist. In that quiet moment, we silently agreed that while the journey ahead might be long, the first steps had been taken. The road to reconciliation was not without its obstacles, but with each passing day, our bond was being reforged, a delicate, enduring promise of tomorrow.